Hey, Cookies here. We just finished up week 2 of Dragonflight, and with that, Mythic Plus and Raid has finally opened up. I'm super excited to get into it today and to just start grinding out keys and then raid throughout the week and see where some of our characters end up. Most importantly, I'm going to be making a ton of Healing Out Loud videos in both Mythic Plus and Raid. This week will primarily be focused on Mythic Plus, and then I think next week, once I kind of have a better feel for the bosses and I'm going in for a second time in the raid, that's when we'll do more Healing Out Loud raid content and just raid content in general. So I have a lot planned. I'm not going to go over all of it. That's just the idea is I'm going to go through some Healing Out Loud videos, just get some commentaries out there, maybe stream a little bit if I have some free time, and then we'll probably start working in some more guides. Like I have raid guides coming out that I'm working on right now, but I just want to make sure I have enough information and practice first, so it might take a week or two before they all get released. So this week instead, since there's no vault again, this is the last week where there won't be a vault. So I thought I'd go over a few more weakauras like we did last week with the resources and stuff like that, since there's no vault to open. So I picked out 5 really essential and useful weakauras that I like to use, and they're mostly focused around Mythic Plus, but there's 1 or 2 in there that will be for Raid as well. So starting off, we have Mythic Plus Auto Marker. This is already tuned up and everything for Dragonflight Season 1. And basically, the way it works is once you get generally into combat with something, or you approach something, when you mouse over it, or the game registers that you're seeing them, it will mark them with various markers. And what is important about this add-on is it will just mark things that need to be interrupted. So generally when I'm in a group with friends or something and I have this weak aura installed and say they're new to the dungeon or they don't do as much Mythic Plus as I do or something, I just simply tell them if you see something with a marker on it, just try to interrupt it. It doesn't matter what cast you're interrupting. If it has a marker on it, it's generally important enough to interrupt and to try to stop it from casting. It does something important and valuable if it has a marker on its head. It also just helps in general when you're playing with friends and stuff and you just have markers out there. It's easier to communicate and stuff like that. So if you ever play in pre-made groups and whatnot, but even in pugs, I would say this is still good because the markers tell people, hey, this needs to be interrupted. It just gives more visual notification to other people. Next up, we have Mythic Plus Timer. This is completely just quality of life and preference, but it just gives you a new Mythic Plus timer rather than the default UI or using an add-on. And I just really like the information it gives you. It looks really clean. It gives you detailed overviews on deaths. It also compares your personal best records of like boss kills and stuff in that dungeon on the same difficulty previously. And it also gives you a prediction of how much percent you're getting from the trash that you're actively in combat in with, which is super useful. So I really like this week, Aura. Next up is some more actually useful ones gameplay wise. We start off with Ellesmere's Dungeon Frontals. This basically is set up to every single frontal that any of the mobs do in the dungeons. It will by default make like a loud gunshot noise, which is definitely very noticeable. I personally prefer a much lighter noise, so I went in here and adjusted it. I'll just use bigwigs to show you guys what noise I use. So for the noise, in some of the bigwigs guides, we actually went over this. But the noise that I use is going to be this retro arcade sound pack. I'll have a link to it in the description down below. And I just have it set to, I believe it's 190. So it's just that noise right there. If I hear that noise, I know that a frontal is happening. So I know to avoid where the tank is standing or wherever the mobs are facing. Cool. So that's a really nice weak aura. And the way that you change the sound, if you want to change the sound on the weak aura, is just type /WA to go to your weak auras. We then look up Ellesmere, or you can look up like frontal. There it is right there. We just click on it. You just click on the whole group, and then you're just going to go to Actions, the Actions tab. And then right here it says Play Sound. You want that checked. And then you just change the sound right here. The default will be like gunshot or gun boom or something. I don't remember what it's called, but then you just change the sound here to whatever you want. And then if you want to be even more specific, you can change each specific ability's noise by clicking on them here. I definitely recommend keeping them all the same because that's what allows you to register, hey, a frontal's happening. If they're all different noises, you're not going to remember. So that's that weak aura. Next up, we have a modified version of also Ellesmere's Disease Dispel Reminder. So he made a weak aura for Holy Paladins for dungeons where you either do or don't need a improved Dispel, so that the weak aura will pop up and notify you, hey, you don't need to take improved Dispel in this dungeon if you have it. So then you can go in your talent tree and unselect it and put that point somewhere else. And then same thing for if you enter a dungeon without improved Dispel and it's a dungeon where you need it, then it will tell you, hey, you don't have this selected. Go in there and make sure you pick it because you need it for this dungeon. So I edited it and I made it work for Paladin, Priest, and what was the other one? There was one more healer. Maybe it was just both Priest specs, and then I think I'm actively working on figuring out which dungeons, if any, have curses, so that I can then add Resto Shamans in there as well. So just keep an eye out on the weak aura if you're a Resto Shaman and you're looking for that. But otherwise, download it, and it should help a lot with either of those classes that need or that can take improved dispels. And then lastly, for raid this week, I'm going to go ahead and recommend Causese's Vault of the Incarnates weak aura. He always makes like full-on raid packs for every single new raid that comes out, and it's basically just weak auras that go over basic mechanics and just things that are happening. Think of it kind of like another addition to Bigwigs, where it just gives you more information on things that are going on. And the way that I like to use this is if I go to, let's say, I don't know if I actually have this one installed yet, so I will go ahead and install it really quick, and I'll show you guys where I usually put this, because it's basically just like a row of icons, and I like to set it up right next to my Bigwigs timer so that they kind of work in, relation with one another. So I will go into Bigwigs. I'll create some test bars here, and then I'm just going to move this. Hopefully I do this correctly and I'm not messing it up. Group. And I will just put it right above my Bigwigs. So here's my Bigwigs bars. And then I just have Causese's raid pack right above the bars. And it just makes this really nice, like, overlay of I have upcoming stuff and then I have ongoing stuff was usually what happens. So it's just a nice way to look at it. And I would generally recommend putting it somewhere towards, the middle of your screen, but not overlapping on top of other things. But yeah, it's just a nice addition to boss timers and just general raid awareness stuff. So that's it for my useful weak auras. I think that's it for this week. I'm going to go do some Mythic Plus, and I'm going to post a whole bunch of videos this week. It's going to be absolutely crazy, so keep an eye out. If I'm going to be playing all my healers, hopefully. I'm going to be starting out with certain ones, but as the week progresses, you should see videos for every single healer by the end of the week in Mythic Plus. And then, like I said, next week we'll focus more on like raid content stuff, and then we'll kind of bounce back and forth. And then usually the way I do my channel is it's going to be really raid focused for the majority of like the first month or two. And then once I get a majority of the raid content done, that's when we then dive more into Mythic Plus for the rest of the season. But we'll have a nice mix of content in the meantime, like while we're just starting out. So let me know what kind of content you guys want to see specifically. And other than that, thank you guys so much for watching. I will see you guys next week, and we'll be opening some vaults on all the healers.